Welcome to Trench Diaries. This is Iron Coffins, part 18. We turned on the radar device and cautiously navigated the narrow passages between the Danish islands. The sea was desolate and deserted. Surface vessels dared not venture through these treacherous waters during such a dense snowstorm. However, U-230 safely maneuvered through the narrow passages between the islands, carefully moving from buoy to buoy. The snowfall ceased around 4 a.m. At daybreak, we raced at full speed on a new course toward Norway. We crossed the Skagerrak on the surface, made a brief stop in Kristiansand for minor repairs, then rounded the southern tip of Norway and slipped into the Hardanger fjord with its magnificent snow-covered mountains. The scenery grew increasingly grandiose and towering cliffs followed us into the port of Bergen. We spent a day there at the pier, made some minor repairs, filled our tanks and bilges with fuel, replenished our provisions with fresh greens and 4 barrels of fresh eggs. U-230 was now equipped for a journey that would have taken it easily to the east coast of the United States and back to France. The sun shone brilliantly white on the day of our departure. However, an untamed wind swept through the fjord at a speed of approximately 60 miles per hour. U-230 approached the northern exit at half speed. I was on the bridge with my watch. Ahead of us, I saw the open sea rise like a giant wall. I placed the antenna of our new radar warning receiver in the backside of the tower casing and had a sailor continually rotate the fragile instrument in a circle. The antenna was an unwieldy wooden cross with a cable looped over its tips to intercept the enemy's radar rays. We called it the Biscay Cross because it was first used by our boats in the Bay of Biscay. At the very moment we left the Bergen fjord, the surging sea struck us with a terrible blow. The Biscay Cross shattered under the force of the onslaught and disintegrated into its components. I tossed the debris into the tower and ordered the framework to be repaired in haste. Blind and without our warning device, we were vulnerable to aerial attacks. Fortunately, visibility was excellent. U-230 steered a northwesterly course straight into the northwest passage between the Shetland Islands and the Faroe Islands. Sea state was force 6 with the wind coming from the west. Heavy breakers shook the boat as if with a giant's fist, and the bridge was drenched. We assumed that our departure from Norway was already known to the English. Outfitting a U-boat in Norway could not remain a secret. We were expecting the first aerial attack at any moment, but the first day of the mission ended without any approaches. Darkness slowly descended upon the turbulent waters, and the repaired Biscay Cross became our sole but mighty eye. U-230, running at high speed, penetrated deeper into the enemy's defensive areas. At 2:20 a.m. the first detection appeared. A high-pitched, alarming chirp rapidly grew louder. The radio operator in a spunk immediately stirred and called out to the central station. "Detection! Strength 2, rapidly increasing." Siegmann jumped from his leather mattress, shot through the low ballast door into the control room and yelled to the bridge, "Lower the cross! Crash dive! Alarm!" The diesel engines roared at full throttle. The cross fell onto the floor plates in the control room and one man after another followed like a stone from the bridge. Their boots crashed onto the metal plates, crushing the antenna into an unrecognizable mess. The boat lowered its bow, submerged and disappeared from the surface in 20 seconds. 30 seconds and the depth gauge needle crawled to 40 meters. But the stern still hung dangerously close to the dive point. 50 seconds. And the hum of the electric motors was extinguished by 4 merciless explosions. U-230 was ripped by the pressure waves 4 times. The entire boat seemed to flex. The standby watch flew out of their bunks. The lights went out and U-230 reared up, its stern was thrown back to the surface. Then the boat tipped forward, quickly dove deep, and hurled those who didn't react lightning fast against the nearest bulkhead. Friedrich, the chief engineer, halted the rapid descent of the boat at 125 meters, or about 400 feet. The men were violently shaken. For most of them, it was their first encounter with bombs. But U-230 remained undamaged, holding tight. It had passed its first test. We resurfaced at 4:30 a.m. and the sea sparkled peacefully in the moonlight. Our Biscay Cross had been patched up again and was spinning monotonously. While down in the iron tube, the radio operator listened intently to the silence of the night, nervously awaiting the next startling sound, the approaching death. That night, we dove 2 more times, and the next day we evaded the hellish bomb salvos 4 more times, plunging into the depths each time, half stunned by the blasts. Each time we narrowly escaped by meters and seconds from the deadly bouquet the bombers presented us. Pursued by an uninterrupted chain of attacks, chased by the shrieks and bursts of the aerial bombs that allowed only brief surfacing intervals for recharging the batteries, we eventually passed the island groups and left unfriendly areas behind. U-230 battled through the ever-rising seas towards its designated operational area 600 nautical miles east of Newfoundland. One storm system after another rolled from west to east, and fog banks obstructed visibility while conditions on board deteriorated rapidly. Seawater rushed through the lower hatch, splashed onto the control room floor plates, and drenched our clothes. The high humidity within the steel tube caused the provisions to rot, our skin to wrinkle, and our sea charts to mold. The stench was brutal. The additional fuel oil we carried in the bilges with us emitted a pungent odor. Our clothing reeked of oil, and even our food took on the taste of the fuel. The constant swinging, swaying, and rolling of the boat proved too much for those who lacked Atlantic experience and a cast iron stomach. Men lost their appetite, and often much more. Only a small group of indomitable men remained to consume the eggs in the 4 barrels before they spoiled. I myself contributed heartily, eating eggs in various forms all day long, raw before my watch, scrambled after I was relieved, hard-boiled for lunch, baked for dinner, and soft-boiled whenever I had a craving for an egg. For days we fought our way through the February storms, the most severe of the winter. The sea boiled and frothed, rising higher and higher under the lashings of the hurricanes that raced one after another from west to east across the Atlantic. U-230 struggled through gurgling whirlpools and over gigantic waves. The boat, lifted by a towering wave, was caught by a second and buried beneath tons of water by a third. Gusts of wind with speeds of up to 150 miles per hour whistled in the highest octaves and rumbled in the deepest bass. And as if to punish us, the wind flung drifting snow, sleet, hail, and frozen spray into our contorted faces. It tugged at our thick rubberized diving suits, cut into our skin like a scourge, and threatened to tear away our eye masks. Only the broad steel belts around our waists kept us tethered to the boat and to life. Down in the dancing steel tube, the wild pounding, rocking motions of the boat hurled us onto the floor plates or against the bulkheads, tossing us around like dolls. Despite it all, we managed to survive the raging storm and the insane sea, arriving combat ready in our designated quadrant. Naval warfare had significantly intensified since my patrol on U-557. Our boats no longer operated alone or in small groups of 3 or 5. They now patrolled the North Atlantic in wolf packs of 20 to 40 boats, meticulously guarding the vast water area with mathematical precision and in close cooperation with the U-boat High Command. Approximately 100 submarines out of a total of around 200 frontline boats were currently organized in several outpost lines in the northern regions. Twice within 10 days, we had been reassigned by the U-boat High Command to intercept a specific convoy. However, hail and snow, blowing like curtains across the sea, reduced visibility to less than a mile, and our chances of spotting a convoy dwindled to an absolute minimum. By the end of February, we crisscrossed the storm-lashed hunting grounds. Allied losses in this month had risen to 60 ships with over 350,000 tons, a considerably higher sinking figure than in the previous February. This new year promised the best hunting results, and we hoped to surpass the 6 million tons sunk the previous year. The only problem was that convoys did not always travel on routes conducive to our ambitions. Ship routine had soon replaced the excitement of the hunt, and it was a completely mad routine. The small boat rolled and pitched, yawed and shuddered incessantly, endlessly, eternally. Cooking utensils, spare parts, tools, canned goods flew ceaselessly through the compartments. Porcelain cups and plates shattered on the floor plates or in the bilges, and we ate our meals directly from the cans. The men, crammed into the pounding, sweaty drum, endured the movements and monotony with stoic calm. Occasionally, one or another man's temper flared, but the crew's morale remained excellent. We were all, without exception, patient veterans of the Battle of the Atlantic. We all had much in common. Each one looked like the other, smelled like the other, used the same phrases and the same curses, and had the same movements. We tolerated each other's quirks and became experts in each other's habits. We knew exactly how each man laughed, grumbled, talked or snored, slurped his coffee or tended to his beard. Nervous tension increased with each uneventful day that dragged by, but it could spontaneously turn into a shared attack fever upon sighting a fat convoy. On a rough, foggy day in early March, the captain climbed up to the bridge and grumbled impatiently. "Tell me, 1W, what on earth is wrong with the Tommies? Aren't they sailing anymore?" "I believe, Herr Oberleutnant, they have their share of problems too," I replied, without taking my binoculars away from my eyes. "Maybe they are reshuffling their forces, or shifting their convoy routes, who knows?" "Yeah, maybe. But something has to happen soon. This idleness can't go on like this," the captain grumbled, lighting a cigarette. A sudden breaker crashed unannounced against the tower casing, drenching him in a shower of spray that soaked the cigarette. With a curse, he picked himself up, jumped into the hatch, and lit a new one inside the tower. "Convoy in AK-79 eastward, speed 9 knots, Riedel called from the control room to the bridge. Minutes later, Siegmann, wrapped in oilskins, stood behind the tower casing again. 1W, now I can tell you what's happening with the Tommies. They don't let small convoys sail alone anymore. They wait until there are 60 or 70 ships gathered before sending them across the Atlantic. According to the report, the new convoy is 120 miles south with about 65 ships. Let's go, gentlemen. No pretending to be tired. Both engines full speed ahead. Hard to port, new course 140 degrees. It was March the 6th. Our hunt began. The boat that had spotted the enemy formation transmitted bearing signals at set times. Snow squalls reduced our visibility and fog forced us to navigate blindly for a long time. Howling gusts sent flakes and hail from above, while lightning came like bright snakes from nowhere. It hissed, crackled and pelted. We sailed from one black wall of weather to another. After 14 perilous hours, during which we had covered over 150 nautical miles, we were still chasing to the southeast, searching, sniffing, listening into the storm. At 7:10 p.m. on a pitch-black night, we made contact with the convoy. Borchert, a lookout with eagle eyes, spotted the destroyer first. I swung the binoculars to port and saw a typical broadside behind a curtain of snow squalls. The ship was on a parallel course, and I assumed we had been in its company for some time. We turned away, pointed our stern at the shadow, and sped away. But we were spotted. The destroyer gracefully turned around and raced toward us at full steam. The captain pushed his engines to full throttle, dove his boat into a snow squall, followed the movement of the squall, and concealed himself in the falling snow. As we inhaled the stench of smoke, soot, and fuel oil, the captain ordered the crew to battle stations. Short episode today because I'm actually on vacation in Konstanz in southern Germany, which is, if you remember, Herbert's actual place of youth, a very beautiful city that he talked about a lot. I rented a small boat and enjoyed Lake Constance on a short cruise, and I can assure you, if you ever get the chance to visit this place, do it. Anyway, looking back at the episode, it is another fine example of the harsh life aboard a World War II submarine. I personally enjoy eggs very much as well, but imagine eating nothing but eggs inside a steel tube that reeks of diesel and unwashed sailors. In the next episode, we'll see how the attack goes, and I will see you then. If you like this episode and want to do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe. I read every single comment, and I appreciate your continued support. Cheers.